So this will be the second part of maybe a 3-part video series or whatever you want to call it about filming disc golf. I had a few people that were curious about what it's like, how to do it, what kind of, more importantly, wanted to know what kind of stuff, what kind of equipment specifically that you need to do it, like they actually have to have. Now, if you're going to be getting into doing the filming aspect of disc golf rounds and stuff like, you know, like Jomez and all them do, you need to decide whether or not you're trying to be at their level or not, and because that's a completely different ball game. That's not where I stand. That's not where I want to be. It's something that I do occasionally. I don't plan on doing it on the regular. It's not my thing. So if it's going to be solely what you do, then you know, you need to figure out where you plan on yourself being, whether you want to be up there with them, because that's a big difference between them and where I'm at, you know, or if you just want to provide coverage for tournaments that otherwise people wouldn't see, that kind of thing, then yeah, then you're in a more reasonable realm of things that you can accomplish much easier than what they do. So we'll just get into it, really keep it really simple. There's a lot of things that everybody thinks that they have to have in order to be able to film disc golf. And there are things that you really don't need that much of, as much as you might think. You just kind of want to keep up pace with all the other guys. You don't have to do that. Don't try to keep up with some people that are just, don't try to be something that you aren't capable of being. Does that make sense? That makes no sense whatsoever. Anyway, a few things that you don't need to film disc golf. Obviously you need a camera, and we'll get into that later. Hopefully you're not that stupid. What you don't need, you don't have to have a catch camera person. It's great to have it, but there are a lot of courses where you really, if your camera is capable of like a good telephoto lens or something that can zoom 20 plus times, you can see plenty of the shot. Catch cam is just kind of like a bonus thing. Or if you're at a course that has a lot of blind shots that you can't see the basket, or you know, it's like a long 1,000-foot par 5 or something like that, and then maybe you want one there. But for the average course, you don't really have to have one. A lot of people are going to pressure you to get one, and honestly, the first time I ever filmed, I just did it on a whim. Didn't use the catch cam, and it looked just fine. And it's only because of the pressure people are like, oh, you should have a catch cam guy, you should have it. It just adds to it, and it makes it so much better. And it makes it a little better, but honestly, it's not that much better in my opinion. I mean, certain courses you have to, but if it's like a short course, like, why? If you can see the other camera guy plain as day on like every hole, you don't need a catch cam. That's just a waste of editing, and it just takes you longer to edit. I can edit way faster if it's just my footage from my camera that I know that I filmed. So much easier to do. You don't have to have a catch cam, period. The other thing you don't need is super expensive equipment. I literally filmed around on my cell phone, but I don't recommend doing that unless that's like your thing, like it's some kind of something you do with your channel. It's all about filming on a cell phone or whatever. That's fine, but I wouldn't recommend doing that regularly, but it works. It's just fine, especially if you have a really good phone. That's fine. But you don't need some crazy thousands of dollar expensive Sony camera, which they are the best. They are. You can get away with a good cheap camcorder. You can get a good cheap camcorder and that'll work just fine, as long as you can zoom in and it's got a good autofocus. Is somebody behind me? No, that's me paranoid. Just good zoom, good autofocus, decent 1080p, 60 frames a second is ideal. You don't have to have 60 frames per second, really. I mean, unless you're trying
to slow something down.
Then you would want to go up. Then you could do, if you're not, you want at least 60 frames a second, but you can get away with 30, because the only reason you would use 60 is if you wanted to do some slow motion shots or whatever, but that's really just up to what your cameras are capable of. So, is that a squirrel? Why don't you calm down there, pal? So you can use a DSLR. They're a pain in the ass to do, especially if they don't have IVUS built into the body, or if the lens itself isn't image stabilized. Because otherwise you're gonna have to sit here and stabilize a bunch of images afterwards in your software, your editing software, which takes up so much time. So avoid a DSLR unless it has very good stabilization in it. Like Panasonics are really good with that. Canons, not so much. And obviously storage is a big thing. Definitely want to have some of the really good SD cards or CF cards or whatever it is your camera has to use. Definitely get the higher end of those just to be safe. They have higher reading and writing speeds. You don't want to get something that's really just basic slow ass shit that's just not gonna keep up with what you're trying to do. So they're not that much more expensive, so spend a little bit on the memory cards. You won't regret it. Microphones. You don't have to spend a bunch of money on a microphone, because the audio that you're capturing, as long as you have a wind muff on your microphone, because you're outdoors, there's going to be wind here and there, so you want something with a wind muff. You could buy a $60 Rode Video Micro, and that thing is amazing. So good. There are tons of different variations of that with other brands. There's just tons of them. I mean, you can get them cheaper than that if you want to, and they'll be just fine too for the most part, but some may require more post-processing than other ones. But Rode mics, this one is pretty decent. This is the wireless one. I just happen to use it because I just felt like using it. So, but Rode, they have great mics, so perfectly fine with that. Monopods, you might want a monopod. Definitely if you don't have a camera that has a lot of stabilization in it, because that'll help you when you're at the tee or wherever you're at. You're kind of standing really still. You have some way to just rotate nice and smooth. If it's got a ball head on it, that actually helps even more, because it's just, trust me, it just makes it a little more easier. But you don't have to. You can get a cheap one for 20 plus bucks wherever, and they'll work just fine. But again, that really depends on your camera. If you have a bigger, heavier camera like I was using, you want to have something that's got feet on it and a much more fluid motion head. I think it's called a fluid head or some shit like that. I don't know the exact term, but depending on what kind of camera you have, you want to go a little more expensive, something that can handle a little more weight versus something just as simple as a extendable monopod that you can set on the ground and use to help stabilize your image or whatever. The most important thing that you need to do any of this stuff is a good computer. You want something that's got a dedicated graphics card. Anything with 16 gigs or more of RAM is ideal. You can get away with less. I find that 8 gigs of RAM is not enough, and at least not in my computer. My computer is super slow. It takes all day to export a file that's got 30 minutes or more of footage. It takes forever to export that. So something with good graphics card, enough RAM to run the editing program you're using and the computer at the same time. And honestly, from what I've found, I've only really used 2 editing programs, DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is just more friendly for your computer. If you have a slower computer, it's easier to work with than DaVinci Resolve. So it sucks to have to pay that monthly fee for it, but it's all in all, it's just better in my opinion. So if you don't have a fast computer, it's gonna slow you down a lot, a whole lot, and it's gonna frustrate the hell out of you. Things that should only take hours take more than a day to do that just shouldn't take that long. So invest in a computer first, 100%. But if you don't have the money to do that and you're just stuck with your boring ass laptop like I am, there are ways around it. You can reduce the quality of your playback. You can run proxy files. You know, there's lots of workarounds. Just get on YouTube and look them up. You'll find them. They're all there to help you kind of speed it up a little more. But all in all, it's still not going to be enough. At least not for me and my computer. So better computer, 100%. Yeah, and also, if you're going to do commentary, you're probably going to want to mic if it's two commentary guys or just one. I mean, this doesn't require that. But if it's two people, mic them up separately, just in case they happen to be talking over each other. That way you can remove that part or whatever it is that you want to do. It just makes it easier in the end, because if they're both recording on the same mic, same track, then there's no way to adjust a single person's audio versus being able to adjust both of their audio, because they're both mic'd up separately, and then you just have to sync it. And it's not hard to do in any of these programs. Most of them have like a way to auto sync the audio, and you'll figure it out. That's what YouTube is for. So YouTube that shit. If you have questions, don't ask me, because I'm not going to do an in-depth detail on all of that. This is as much as you're going to get from me. So yeah, that's all I got, guys. It's getting dark, and I'm running out of things to say, so give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. You can give it a thumbs down if you are a YouTube hobo scrounging for hobo food, stealing from the local squirrels. That's what you are. So do this instead. Anyway, I'm out. Peace. I'd like to take this time to thank the asshole who invented daylight savings time. You're an idiot. And no one likes you. And you smell weird. Yeah.